Welcome everyone. Moadim lesimcha. Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi Ketubot, 1 week at a time. This is our 14th lesson, and today we are going to be reviewing Daf 93 to 98. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Sukkot, and it's really so nice to be able to share some Torah. So let's do Daf 93. We have the Mishnah, and the Mishnah tells us that a man was married to three women, and he died, and the value of each one of their Ketuvot was 100, 200, and 300, right? So now we're going to talk about how we split up the property, right? So he dies, they each get their Ketuva, but each one has a different value for her Ketuva. And it seems that he only leaves 100 zuz. So, right, what do we do with the money? So the Mishnah tells us that if he left only 100, they divide it evenly, right? Because the lowest number is 100. So everyone gets, right, 33 and a third. What happens if he leaves 200? So then the first one gets 50, and then the second and the third get 75 each. The Gemara is going to explain why everybody gets what they get. If he left 300, the first one again gets 50, and the next two get 100. If it's 300, the first one gets 50, the second one gets 100, and the third one gets 150, right? So they're each getting half of what they were supposed to get, 100, 200, 300. So 50, 100, and 150. And the Mishnah ends by saying, so too in a business deal, right? So if you have partners that invest in a business deal and everyone puts in a certain percentage or a certain amount, so at the end, you divide it based on what you put in, right? The percentage of what you put in. So now the Gemara explains, why does the first one, right? We said the first one gets 50. Why is that the case? So the Gemara explains that number two wife removes herself from the argument, and she says, I'm not getting involved. And therefore, this is for the second case, and therefore, right, number 1 and 3 divide the 100. So, right, 1 and 3 each get 50, and then 2 and 3 need to divide what's left. Again, there's 150 left, and then they divide that, and that's how everybody, right, they get 75, and the first one stays with their 50. That was in the case of the 200. In the case of the 300, again, number 1 gets 50, right? Number 3 says, I'm not getting involved. So number 1 and 2 divide the first 100, again, 50-50. And then number 2 and 3 divide the next 100. And that's why, right, the first one got 50, the second one got 100, and then the third one gets the rest, which is 150. Okay, right? Or maybe the case is that the husband left 75, and then another 125 came afterwards, so then they split the 75 equally, and then they take the 125, and then they divide that again. So that's another option, right? Another case is he leaves 75, which they're going to split equally, and then another 225. Again, remember we said if he leaves 300, instead of looking at it as 300, break it up into 75 and then 225. And therefore, again, they each split it up. Or the last option is that they always split whatever money is left equally amongst the three wives. Now we're going to talk about investing in business. So the Gemara tells us that two people invest unequally in an ox to plow, right? So it's not like a company, rather it's an actual animal that's going to plow a field. So they divide the profits of the plowing equally, right? Because they came in together to buy this ox. Even though one put in more money than the other, the ox itself is doing the same work, and therefore they split the profits equally. But if they sell it, right? If they, let's say, bought an ox together and then they sell it to slaughter, so then each person gets his percentage, right? Because you can say you take a third of the meat, and I'll take the 2/3, and you can divide it up. Or again, another option is that they still split it equally. Um, what if, again, two people each bought an ox and then they hitched them together and now they're working together? Again, each person gets a percentage of the profits based on the investment that they put in the beginning. What happens if they invested old coins and then they ended up with new coins? So again, there wasn't really a profit, but the coin itself was different. So then again, everyone gets a percentage of what they put in the first place. Okay, next Mishnah on 93. A man is now married to 4 wives, and then he died. The first one collects first, then the second, and then each one needs to swear to the other ones that they're taking exactly what they were owed. But the fourth one doesn't need to swear to anyone because she's the last, or maybe another opinion is that she does need to take an oath. This is, again, if there's enough money to go around for everyone. If they all got married on the same day, so the previous part of the Mishnah is talking about, again, the first wife takes first, the second wife takes second, because in general, when someone marries 4 different women, right, it's over a course of time. Therefore, the first gets first and the second gets second. However, what if they all got married on the same day? One option is we take based on the hours, right? The person who had the first chuppah in the morning, she gets to collect first. And if they got married all at the same time, so again, now you're going to divide it equally among all 4 women. Okay, the Gemara on the top of 94 tells us that if, let's say, they took land, and then if number 1 took land, and then number 4 took, and number 1's land was seized by a creditor. Remember, we talked about if the husband owed money, the creditor can come and seize the land. So let's say he took it from number 1. So the question the Gemara asks is, now can number 1 wife, right, take the land from number 4, right? Because again, number 1 wife took land and now it gets taken away, so she lost it. Can she go to number 4 and say, hey, my turn, let me take some of that land? So there's a machloket. If, again, number 4 took it out of turn, if number 1 can go and take the land back from wife number 4. Or if that's the case, maybe we'll say, maybe number 4 will say, I'm not going to take care of this land because number 1 wife can always come and take it from me. So I'm going to just let the field get ruined and I'm not going to take care of it. So in that case, maybe we would say that number 1 wife cannot take the land from number 4 wife. Okay. However, right, we talked about the creditor coming to take land. If the creditor comes, he needs to swear to the orphans, even if they're adults, if he wants to take the land from him. Again, he has to swear that he is taking what is owed to him. And therefore, number 4 wife, when she takes land from the orphans, she also needs to swear because she's like a creditor. And another idea is that all the brothers, right, the heirs or partners in a partnership, are agents for one another if there's a court case, right? So if there's a court case, not all the brothers, right? They don't all need to show up to court. They also don't all need to, right? Not all the partners need to come. So only if one shows up, that's okay. It's as if all of the other wives were there. Therefore, when one wife swears to another, she does not have to do it in front of everybody. She can do it in front of one of the wives, and she's seen as a representative to the other wives. Okay, since we're talking about seizing land and it being on the same day, so the Gemara talks about a sale document or a document of sale. What if we have two of them from the same day? So now who gets the land? So one option is that they split it because again, they were both were sold at the same time, or it's under the discretion of the judges, right? Shuta dedaine, which means the judges, right? You go to court and the judges rule based on what they feel is the appropriate ruling. So, why do we say again? We want to know who who gets the land first. One option is that we go according to the witnesses that signed on the document. Therefore, when the witnesses signed on two documents from the same day, we say that they should split it. Or do we say that we go according to what the judges say because we go according to when the document was actually handed over and not when the document was signed? And therefore, the court can determine what that would be, and then they can decide who gets the land first. Okay, what happens, and now we're going to talk about sales, sales of land and their documents, and we'll see what happens, right? So Reuven wrote a sale document to Shimon, right? I'm going to sell you this plot of land. But then he gave it to Levi. So now who gets the land, right? Do we go according to the document? The sale document says Reuven is selling to Shimon, or do we go to according to whoever Reuven actually gave the document to? Another question, that's a machloket. Basically, one says one opinion is Shimon and one opinion is Levi. What happens if a person sends money, right? A person sends money to Shimon, and then Shimon died, and then Reuven died, right? So does the money belong to Shimon's heirs because he sent it to Shimon, even though Shimon never acquired it? Or does it go back to Reuven's heirs because there is no Shimon anymore? So does it go back to Reuven's heirs? One option is that they split the money, right? Because again, we can't ask Reuven, is it okay if we give Shimon's sons? So they're going to split the money. Or again, it is up to the discretion of the court to try to figure out who Reuven would want the money to go to. What about a mother? Here's a case. A mother wrote all her money to one of her children in the morning and then to another son in the afternoon. So if the hour was written on the document, so the first one gets it because she wrote it first. If there is no time written on the document, so then they're going to split it. Or again, up to the discretion of the judges to determine who she really meant to give it to. What happens if we have one document that says, again, Reuven sold this field to Shimon on the 5th of Nisan. And then we have a second document that says that Reuven sold the same field to Shimon or to Levi maybe, in Nisan, but there's no date, right? It has the month, but not the date. So what happens? So we say, let's give it to the 5th of Nisan person because maybe the other date is later in Nisan. Or, right, because again, it could have meant the 29th of Nisan, right? And basically the second guy is stuck, or the second guy can collect from any property that was sold after the 29th of Nisan. So he can now go and collect, excuse me, any he can go and collect any land that was sold after that date. Okay, let's go to the Mishnah on Daf 95. Um, the Mishnah says that a man was married to two women, and he sold a field that was a lien, that was like the guarantee, to both of the Ketubot. The first wife writes to the buyer, "I won't take this field from you. Right? I don't have anything to do with you." So then the second wife can go and take it. Okay. So now what if so now the second wife takes it. Then the first wife can go to the second wife and say, "Hey, I got married first, so I'm taking the land from you." And then, one second. Then the buyer who bought the land can go to the first wife and say, "Hey, what are you doing with that land? I bought that land," and he can take it back. And then it goes on in a circle. So this is an issue. And the Mishnah ends by saying, so too with creditors. It doesn't only have to be with wives. It could be with anybody that the husband owes money to. So this is called din udvarim, right? The person says, right, din means like any court case, and dvarim means any words. Ein li itcha, right? I don't have any of these things with you, meaning I don't want to fight with you, so you take the land. So the Gemara says that saying this line of din udvarim doesn't work with partners. It does work with the creditor and the wife, but not with partners, right? It must be that he bought it with her permission, meaning when the person bought the land, it must be that the wife gave permission for him to buy that land. If not, she can say, "Oh, why did I say that I'm not going to get involved with you? Because my husband made me do it, right? I didn't want to get involved, but I just needed to please my husband, and therefore that's why I said, right? That's why I signed off on this purchase, but really I didn't mean to do it." Okay. The Gemara continues that a creditor can't collect from property that was sold if there are available properties in the estate, right? So we've been talking about seizing land. So the Gemara says you can't seize land if there's other land that's free, that the orphans own, right? Even if it's a lower quality. Only if there's nothing available can the creditor seize the property. So let's say, again, when the person bought the first field, he left other fields there with the seller, right? And therefore he said, right, I'm buying this property, but I see that he has a lot more property for the Ketuva. Therefore, I'm going to buy this property, and whatever lien was on the first property, it gets transferred to the second property. Therefore, right, a creditor can't take from that first field and has to take it from the second field. But if that second field was ruined, then he can go and take it. If the buyer knew that the second field would get old and ruined, so then he will lose his field when after he buys it. What if a man tells an unmarried woman, right, my property is going to go to you, and then after you, it's going to go to somebody else. And then she goes and she marries another person, and then she dies. So the husband of this woman, he gets the property, and it's as if he bought it. And the man who is supposed to get it after her, right, doesn't get it because the husband now trumps the other guy. So therefore, when the original guy dies, the woman inherits it, and then the husband of that woman inherits it, and it stops there. It doesn't go to the other person that the deceased wanted it to go to. Um, excuse me. Okay. What if we have the same case, but um, she sells the property that she inherits, and then she gets married, and then she dies? So now the husband can seize that property because he can say, oh, you know what? That really belonged to me, meaning my wife. And the guy who is supposed to get it can now come to the husband and say, listen, I was supposed to get it after your wife, so you have no rights to it. So I get it now. Um, and he, right, is the only one. Uh, um, Ah, and now the person who bought it can now come and seize the property because he can say, listen, both of you, I'm the only one who actually paid for this land, therefore I get the land and you do not. In the first case that we mentioned, she got the property when she was single, and then she gets married, and therefore the husband acquires it. In the other case, she got the money, let's say, when she was married, and then the original man can say, I don't want the husband to get it. Excuse me. I don't want the husband to get it, and therefore, right, I want the money to go after the woman. I want it to go to this other person and not her husband. Uh, and with that, we finish the 10th chapter of Masechet Ketuvot, and we are going to continue. The next Mishnah at the bottom of 95 tells us that a widow is supported by the orphans and they get her earnings, right? Just like the wife is supported by the husband and he gets her earnings, so too if he dies, the widow is supported and they get her earnings. And her heirs bury her and they get her ketuva, right? Meaning not the man's heirs, but the woman's heirs, right? Again, if they were married beforehand. Okay, the Gemara says that in the Galil, right, in the north of Israel, the orphans had to support her. But in Yehuda, they actually didn't have to. They could decide if they wanted to or not. And there's a machloket what the law actually is. Daf 96 tells us that actually the widow gets to keep all of her earnings. Um, Maybe then the orphans don't need to support her, um, but we're not sure if that is the case. The widow has to do all the tasks in the house that she did for her husband. She has to do them for the orphans, right? Again, the heirs are taking over for the husband, and therefore she needs to keep the house, especially if she's being supported by them, except for the three acts that we said were quite intimate, and therefore she does not have to do it for them. These were, right, serving the wine, like turning down the bed, and washing his hands and feet. So they do not. They do not have to. They do not have to. She does not have to do this for the orphans. Okay, I see. Lizette asked, right, that we have 100 and 200, but how does 300 come about? Excellent question. If you remember, we said that the husband can always add to the ketuva. So the first two got, let's say, what they got, minimum. The third wife got a bonus. So he was able to add to her ketuva. Excellent question. Okay, let's continue on Daf 96. We said that the widow has to do certain acts, right, to keep the house for the orphans. So too, just like a servant needs to do certain things for his master, so too a student needs to do it for his rabbi, right? So we see this relationship of acts of service done for people that we respect. And it seems the only thing he doesn't have to do is tie his shoes. That's seen as a little bit disrespectful. So he does not have to tie his shoes. Okay, let's go back to the widow. If the widow grabs movable objects, right, which are called metaltalin, which means they are movable, right? So if the widow grabs these movable objects for her sustenance, for her support, so she can keep it. That works. But not for her ketuva. For her ketuva, she only takes it from land, not from the candlesticks or the china or the fur in the closet. She only takes it from land. But, says the Gemara, maybe if she does seize it, then she actually can keep it. What if a woman waited 2 or 3 years before asking for support? So the Gemara tells us she can't get it anymore, meaning she had her time, and if she was okay for 2, 3 years, it means she's okay to support herself. Therefore, she forfeited her rights to being supported. Or maybe what the Gemara means is she can't get back pay, but from now on, she can be supported. Um, let's say the orphans say that they gave her money for support, and she says that they didn't. So who needs to bring the proof? Remember, we said in the court, somebody needs to come and bring proof. Who is it? The wife, meaning the widow, or the orphan? So if the widow hasn't remarried, then the orphans need to bring proof that they did not support her, that they did support her, and if they can't, then they need to continue supporting her. And if she got remarried, then she needs to bring the proof, right? Because she has more state, she's has more status, and maybe that's why she would need to bring proof in that situation. There's a machloket whose possession the estate is in. Is it in the widow's possession or in the orphan's possessions? So that seems to be the machloket. What if a woman sells the property? So then she needs to write on it, I sold this property for my support, for mizonot, or for my ketuva. Or maybe she doesn't need to specify, right? She can do whatever she wants, right? She has that right. Daf 97, she can actually sell property. How does it work, right? How does she sell property? So she can sell property once every 12 months, and then the buyer, instead of giving her 30,000 shekel for the sale, he actually gives her a monthly stipend, like he pays her back in monthly installments, because the issue is that if she gets married in the meantime, that money goes to the orphans and not to her. So we want to create a balance where we know that she's being supported, but on the other hand, if she gets married, we don't want her to have 30,000 extra dollars in her account that really should be going to the orphans. Okay, or another option is she sells it every 12 months instead of she sells it every 6 months instead of every 12. And that is the law. She sells property every 6 months, and again, every month she gets money from the buyer. If she sold the property, she can actually go back and seize it for her ketuva, right? She sells it to make money to support herself, but now let's say she decides she's going to leave this family and she wants her ketuva, she can now go back to that person and seize the land. But that's only if she left some of the property in the estate. But if not, then she cannot. If a person sold land because he needed money, right? It's important to understand that in an agricultural society, most people are not selling their land unless they really need to. So let's say they needed to sell the land because they needed to buy something. And then it turns out that they didn't need the money in the end. The Gemara asks, is the sale void, right? Because the reason for the sale doesn't exist anymore, so is the sale voided? And the Gemara says no. If it was a mistaken sale, so then it is voided. But if not, right, if you meant to sell it when you sold it, so then that is the end. Okay, next Mishnah on Daf 97. A widow can sell property without permission from the court. Right? The husband left property, she's allowed to go and sell it. Or, says the Mishnah, maybe only if the widow is a widow for marriage, but not if they were only engaged and not married, because if they were only engaged, when he dies, the husband dies, she does not need to be supported by the estate. And therefore, since she's not getting support, then she doesn't need money right away. And therefore, she can go to court, and the court will decide when she can sell property. The Gemara explains this is, again, we want to make sure that women will get married. And if they see that it's going to be super complicated for them to get support if their husband dies, maybe they're not going to want to get married. Or another reason is maybe the husband doesn't want his wife to go to court, right? It's very embarrassing, and therefore he doesn't want her to go to court. A divorced woman can only sell the property in court. So that is important to understand, that this case as well is for her heirs as well, right? If she dies and her children need to go, then it is the same case as well. Okay, next Mishnah. If she sold land for a part of her Ketuva, or she gave it as a collateral, or she gave it as a gift, then she can only sell the rest of the land in court, right? We want to make sure that everything is above board. Therefore, she can only do it in a court. Or another opinion in the Mishnah says, no, she can sell the land a few times and it doesn't matter. And if she does do this, she has to write, I sold this property for support, for mizonot. However, a divorcee can only sell property in the court, not on her own. The Gemara explains that if she gets her Ketuva, so then she doesn't get support anymore. And if she gets partial Ketuva, there's a machloket, if she gets her mizonot or not. Okay, Daf 98. There's a story of a woman who took a silver cup as part of her Ketuva, and it says that she still was supported by the estate. Let's say she sold land for her Ketuva without permission from the court. So does she now need to take an oath that she did everything properly? Right? She needs to make the sale public. And if she did not make that sale public, then maybe it is not a valid sale. The Gemara says on 98 also that she cannot assess the value of the property on her own, right? She needs to bring people in for them to assess the value of the property. And she does need to take an oath, but she doesn't need to publicize the sale if she doesn't want to. Okay, the last Mishnah for today, we're going to have 3 cases. Okay, case number 1. A woman had a Ketuva of 200, and her husband died. So she sold land that was valued at 100, but she sold it for 200, right? Or the opposite. It was valued for 200, and she sold it on eBay for 100. So the Mishnah says, again, she's owed 200. So what happens in this case? The Mishnah says that counts as her Ketuva, meaning she's not a very good saleswoman, or she should have been a little bit more careful. And right, again, if she took it and sold something that was she sold it valued. It was valued at 100. She sold it at 200. Great, she made money. And the opposite, right? She lost money. She still. That's it for her ketuva. That's case number one. Case number two. She had a ketuva of 100, and she sold a field worth 100 plus 1 dinar, meaning its value was a little bit more than 100, and she sells it for 100. So this sale is invalid. Or Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, 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 it's valid. And if she leaves over a large enough piece of the field, so then it becomes invalid, right? Depending on how the sale was done. Okay, third case. She had a ketuva of 400. Again, this is with the Tosefet. He wrote what he wanted to write. So she had a ketuva of 400, and she sold 4 fields for 100, right? One field for 100, another field for 100, but the last one was valued at 100 plus, right? And then she sold that for 100. So the last sale is invalid, but all the other sales are valid. Okay, so the Gemara explains that all the gains go to the person who owns the money or who's getting the money. So let's say she sold the value of 100 to 200. So the extra goes to the orphans, and then they say, take the money for your ketuva, right? So she can't go and sell another field, right? She can't say, I took a field for 100. I was a good business person and I got 200, but I only took a field that was worth 100. I want to take another field. So the Gemara says that that does not work. Okay, let's talk about messengers, right? If a messenger sells property, right? Someone says, take this property and go sell it for me. Maybe, let's say he gets extra money, right? He's, again, the messenger, the shaliach is a good business person. Maybe the shaliach, the messenger, can keep the extra money. So the Gemara explains, if it had a set price, so now it's a machloket. Maybe they split the extra, right? The messenger and the owner who sent the messenger. If it's not a set price, so then it goes to the whatever's extra goes to the owner. The owner, let's say, asked the messenger to sell something, and he sold double, right? Meaning he said, sell this small piece of land, and by accident or on purpose, I don't know, the messenger sells double the amount of land. Again, this is not value. This is actual land. He sells double. Is half, right? Is the first half a valid sale, right? Because he did sell what he wanted him to, just he sold more. Or is the whole sale invalid? So it seems that it depends how he phrased it. And it seems that there's another case that's brought with me'ila, right? If you remember, me'ila means to misuse consecrated property. So the Gemara gives us a story of a person who has guests, and he says, oh, here, take a piece of cake. And then the messenger says, you know what, take 2 pieces of cake. And then the people end up taking 3 pieces of cake. So the Gemara says, right, and let's say it turns out, oh no, all 3 pieces of cake were really consecrated. They're hekdesh. What happens? So the Gemara says all the people transgressed the commandment of Me'ilah, meaning because everybody misused the consecrated item. So it shows that each person is adding to the original one, right? It doesn't invalidate the original statement. Rather, it just adds to the statement. And with that, we finish our daf for today. It was a little bit shorter because we actually, the last time we had class was last Thursday. This week, I don't even know what day it is. Today is, I think, Wednesday. So we're going to have class again on next Thursday. So it's going to be a little bit of a longer class. So I will send out an email, but we will be having class next Thursday. And with that, I wish everyone a Moadim L'Simcha, a Chag Sameach, and wishing everyone a wonderful Sukkot. I hope you are having a wonderful festival, and looking forward to seeing you next week after Simchat Torah. So I hope if any of you have Gemaras or the books that you've been studying with, you can dance with them on Simchat Torah because you have all really taken part of learning the Torah and more than the Torah, the Gemara. So really, kol hakavod, everyone, and wishing everyone a wonderful holiday, and see you next week.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Rabbi. Thank you. Bye-bye.